Hint, meant, mind, find. Norbridge faced the door at room 213 and stroked his beard. Elizabeth thought he might knock, but he simply stood studying the door, as if trying to make up his mind about something. He moved closer, leaning in, and although at this point it was impossible for Elizabeth to see what he was doing, she was certain he had pressed his ear against the door and was listening for any sound within. She didn't allow herself to breathe. She half wondered, through her alarm and uncertainty, if her heart was beating so loudly that he could hear it. And then, with a small creak in the door in the hallway, Norbridge backed away, shook his head, and strode out of sight. 3 nights in a row, Elizabeth said to herself as she stepped off the chair. And although she was tempted to leave her room and see if Norbridge was up to the library, she told herself that what she had seen was all the proof that she needed. If Norbridge wasn't a book thief trying to locate books he stashed in his library, something else strange was definitely going on. The next morning at breakfast, Elizabeth told Freddie she had seen Norbridge heading to the library once again, but they agreed to focus on their scavenger hunt and put everything else, the library, Norbridge, Marcus Q. Hems, his wife, the code, and Nestor's painting, out of their thoughts, at least the rest of the day. I plan to concentrate on stumping you with a scavenger hunt, Freddie announced, before they parted to finalize their clues. You're the only one who will be wandering around Winterhouse till Christmas, Elizabeth said. Freddie gave her a snake-eyed look. Be back here in 1 hour for the exchange of clues, he said, and they both raced off to put everything in order. When they met at the family tree painting at exactly 10 o'clock, they handed each other clue number 1 and shook hands. Elizabeth had her empty backpack on her back because she figured she would have to need something in which to stash the items she found over the next hour or two. Maybe the best scavenger hunt solver wins, Freddie said. Duck logo, Elizabeth said. Good luck. As Elizabeth rushed out of the corridor into the lobby, she folded the note Freddie had given her. I'm red, if it's red. Yes, I carry a map. Norbridge needs to help me. Check under the cap. Elizabeth stopped. What in the world can that mean? She thought. She began to think maybe Freddie really would stump her with the clues. Norbridge needs me to help him, she said aloud. She looked around and glanced around and saw the hotel guests scurrying around through the lobby and saw clerks behind their desks smiling as they greeted people just arriving. The bellhop stood attentively, and then it struck her. The bellhops! Jackson! It had to be. He dressed in red and was Norbridge trusted the most. Elizabeth dashed over to Sampson, who was standing by the front door, and asked him if he knew where Jackson was. I think he's in Grace Hall, maybe making sure the chairs are all arranged, he said, and Elizabeth raced off to find him. Jackson, she called out when she burst through the doors in Grace Hall. He looked up. Miss Summers, he said, good morning to you. She stopped, stood before him, and tried to catch her breath. Good morning to you, too, she said. He stood looking at her, and it seemed to Elizabeth that he was trying not to smile. May I help you? Have you talked to Freddie recently? Jackson looked up. Freddie? Let me think. Come on, Jackson, Elizabeth said, certain now she was on to something. You know what I'm talking about. She glanced at the note again. Check under the cap, she read to herself. The cap, she said to Jackson. Your cap. Jackson leaned forward to allow Elizabeth to remove the bright red pillbox he had hat stuck on his head. Please, miss, he said. Can you adjust my hat? As she took it off, the street map of Mandarin fluttered on the ground, and along the note The words were clue number 2 written on it. First item, Elizabeth said. A map of Spain? I suppose I forgot, Jackson said. That young Mr. Knox came to me about 20 minutes ago and asked me to put all this under my head. He smiled at her. On your way, though. I have work to do. Thank you, she said, and scooped up the map and stuffed it in her backpack. As she raced out of Grace Hall, she unfolded the note, which read, Jepte Yitz Intuf Gumpf. The key word is my name backwards. Elizabeth ran to her room, got out her guide for children to use the alphabet grid. She tried Freddie backwards for the key word, and when that didn't work, she tried Frederick backwards, and then Knox backwards, and then just plain old Fred backwards. Nothing unlocked the code. She began to feel discouraged. Maybe he made a mistake using Vignard cipher, she thought. His name backwards obviously doesn't work. She studied the clue, read it over and over again, and then realized something. My name backwards. It's the letters and the words. My name turned around. She used the letters. Indaman in the keyword, and the 4 words of the code seemed to burst into view. Check my workshop door. Elizabeth raced to Walnut Wonderlog workshop on the 3rd floor, found a bag hanging on the door. Inside were 5 pieces of Flirtion and clue number 5. He's pretty good, Elizabeth thought, and now I have a map and some candy. I just wonder how far along he is. She unfolded the note and read the following. It's the only single word Asia Dorm can make. If you find this place, put your hand in the lake. What? Elizabeth thought. He wants me to go outside to the lake? She studied the lines in consternation, focusing on the 2 words that she stuck out as a sore thumb. Asia Dorm. If those 2 words are actually a part of an anagram, she thought, and if there's only one possible word the 2 of them can be rearranged themselves into, her thoughts began to swirl. Suddenly, the word dioramas popped into her mind. The dioramas in the portrait gallery, she said aloud, and dashed off to the room where 6 dioramas, an elaborate model of Winterhouse, a medieval castle, the ruins of Machu Picchu, the Parthenon, Central Park, and the city of Pompeii. Pre-obliteration, a sign clarified. Each sat atop of a pedestal, invited admiration of their minute and detailed layouts. Elizabeth had stopped to glance at them, and for the only a moment the day before, and now she was in a rush to find the 3rd item, the next clue. But she was amazed at the artistry on the display in each diorama. She ran her eyes over the 6 of them, noticed something sitting on the recreated Lake Luna next to the huge model of Winterhouse. It was a rubber ball, nearly the size of a jawbreaker, that would barely fit in your mouth, and underneath it, a note labeled Clue number 4.